Good evening and welcome to the March 11th school board meeting. We will get started by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're willing and able, please stand and recite it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will get started with the approval of minutes. So we have the February 13th non-public meeting minutes. So we'll entertain a motion to pass those.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Kearney,
Second.
second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll also entertain a motion to approve the public meeting minutes from February 13th as well.
Motion to approve.
First by first by Kearney,
Second.
second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And lastly, we have the meeting minutes from the public forum, which were on February 20th. I would entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
First by Jason,
Second.
second by David. All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. All right, Anthony, the floor is yours.
All right. I haven't been here in a month. The one meeting you had last month was on my birthday, so
Happy birthday.
thank you.
Belated birthday.
Thank you. I decided, better to do that than come here. But
Earned it.
yeah. So at Pinkerton, we have upgraded our security systems. Most of the buildings, soon to be all of them, have new access controls. So in between class periods, students can get in, but after the bell rings, they'll have to go to the office to be able to access them. It'll increase security because, most of the buildings here in Derry, it's like one building, so you can just buzz in and get in. You can't really do that at Pinkerton. So this will make our campus a lot more safe. On the sports end, Contessa Silva and Sarah Rizaza, two students from Derry, set a state record for the New England 4x4 championship. I think it's either track or cross country, I can't remember, but they set a state record, both of them. In terms of basketball, our girls and boys teams were both in the state championship, and our boys won. They beat Nashua South 90-76. Pretty good game. I watched some of it online. Construction, it's on schedule. We haven't had a lot of snow, except for the past week. There hasn't been a lot of rain either. And strategic plan is still progressing. And with that, I also want to thank Paul and Kearney. It's your last meetings. Thank you for all you did for Derry. And to our candidates for school board, some of whom are here, I look forward to you guys working for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anthony. At this time, we would invite the public to come and participate in delegates and individuals. So please approach. When you do, please state your name and address for the record. The light system green means you're within, I think, 2.5 minutes. Once you get to the yellow, that means you have about 30 seconds left, and the red would be that you are at the end of your 3 minutes. One disclaimer, obviously, we are on the eve of elections, so just a reminder that this is a non-electioneering place, so please remember that as you are addressing the board.
Christina Guilford, 13 Beaver Lake Road, School District Moderator. Just wanted to give a reminder that tomorrow is voting at Pinkerton from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The polls will be open, and we are looking forward to all voters coming out and voting.
Thank you, Tina.
Thanks, Tina.
Where are we off?
Good evening. I'm Meg Musberry, President of the Derry Education Association.
My name is Dave Levesque. I am the first Vice President of the Derry Education Association.
On February 19th, I requested that an item be placed on the agenda this evening, allowing the association to speak. This request was made per the collective bargaining agreement between the association and you, the school board. However, this request was denied by the superintendent on March 4th. Accordingly, we're here to offer public comments. We can understand that you might not be reluctant to give us time when you have 27 policies to consider, but we think it's important that you hear from the association representing your professional staff. I'd like to request that the usual 3-minute time limit be waived.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a first by Jason, second by Kearney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The floor is yours.
Thank you. We appreciate it. I think we can all acknowledge that the last year has been difficult for the members of the association and for you as well. There have been so many unknowns and undecideds hanging all over us that it can feel like we're waiting for paint to dry. I'm sure you'll also agree that it shouldn't be like that. The district's planned reorganization will have massive impacts on all of us, and it's critical that people be aware of the decisions affecting them in a timely manner so they can properly prepare. The June 20th decision to close Derry Village School has had far-reaching ramifications. Every subsequent action or decision has had consequences, whether equal and opposite reactions or a successive dominoes effect. This became painfully clear during impact bargaining. The collective bargaining agreement addresses working conditions as one of its primary functions, and the proposed reorganization strongly impacts every member of the teaching staff. During the process of impact bargaining, we thought we had made great strides and arrived at an appropriate agreement. We understood from the beginning that negotiations, by its nature, does not give each party what they want and requires compromise and consideration of other viewpoints. We in the association negotiated accordingly throughout. On November 15th at approximately 7:30 p.m., the negotiations team collectively agreed to a memorandum of agreement. It seemed to be a plan that the association and presumably the district could live with. However, less than 12 hours later, we were faced with actions by the administration which suggested the agreement was not worth the paper it was written on. Throughout negotiations, the association had requested that the district share preliminary staffing plans so that we could ensure that the needs of professional staff were adequately considered and addressed. However, no such plans were shared with us, and we were assured that no plans did exist. Then at 7 a.m. on November 16th, the district communicated plans and preliminary assignments of the professional staff. This was the information the association had sought throughout negotiations, and the administration continued to assure us did not exist as late as the preceding evening. To put it mildly, we were shocked by this surreal occurrence. How could this have happened? Had the administration generated a full staffing plan ready for initial implementation between the set hours of 7:30 p.m. on November 15th and 7 a.m. on November 16th? We had spent 3 months working on an agreement, only to see that much of the placement plan released by the district failed to follow the language of either the just negotiated memorandum of agreement or the collective bargaining agreement itself. In fact, the administration was using terminologies like preliminary assignments and communicating staffing changes, and claiming that the use of the word preliminary meant that there were no real placements and therefore not subject to either the memorandum of agreement or the CBA. Despite those claims, however, the ongoing actions of the district since then have consistently demonstrated that the so-called preliminary assignments communicated by the district at that time and again in December do in fact constitute the district's actual or real assignment plan. Left with no other means of redress, we have been forced to file a number of grievances. The association has always been willing to work with the district to resolve disagreements in the past. However, the administration has not been willing to engage in any constructive dialogue with the association since November 15th. And the superintendent's decision since that time has required us to request hearings by the board. A particular source of frustration for us during that time has been the district's unwillingness or inability to provide staffing numbers which are critically important to our membership due to the contractual stipulations regarding seniority. We made numerous requests for these numbers, the last of which was a 91A Freedom of Information request. We've received a set of staffing numbers. The total figures still remain unclear. Ultimately, we have been reduced to speculation that the total number of professional staff next year will be reduced by the number of staff currently funded by ESSER grants. If true, that would mean 11.5 fewer teaching staff next year, despite the initial promises that reorganization would not result in the loss of teaching positions. At the same time, we are informed that the district has managed to secure grant funding in order to keep the administration position that would have been lost, despite failing to find funding to retain teaching positions. We believe it's clear that what this tells us about the district's actual priorities. Finally, there's been multiple statements made in these meetings to suggest that teachers have been active participants and supporters of the whole reorganization planning process. That's not entirely the case. What do teachers think about the plan? Have you gone out and asked them? There was a short-term role in the initial planning, but the only formal involvement of teachers in the planning process has been in the negotiation of the memorandum of agreement, which the administration seems to decide is advisory only. There are doubtless individual teachers who are excited about the reorganization and its potential effects on themselves. The professional staff as a whole, however, has been entirely excluded from the planning process, perhaps purposely. Therefore, please do not claim that the teachers are on board with this plan when we were intentionally left behind in the dark when your planning process set sail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Meg and Dave. If no one else is going to approach, then I will close delegates and individuals.
Good evening, Elizabeth LaFosse, Trent Road, Derry. I am here tonight to also discuss the restructuring plan that is on the agenda tonight. Bear with me, I'm still recovering a little bit. As just discussed by the Derry Education Association, this restructuring plan has ripple effects that are not even realized yet. Just last week, the community got notification that the summer learning path is being discontinued. Mr. Chair, I would like your attention, please. Thank you. I saw you rolling your eyes at the Derry Education Association. I would like your full attention, please. This is important. With the summer learning path being discontinued, it is literally removing educational opportunities for our students. How do we rationalize that? How do we rationalize that, given what was just discussed by the Teachers Association, the Educational Association, and now this? Limiting educational opportunities is not worth the redistricting plan that you are forcing on us. For 2 years, you have been told here in public meetings that redistricting is not what the community wants. It is going to upend everybody. And as you are now seeing, it's coming to fruition that all of these issues are going to start hitting you. Parents are outraged and saddened. Students are very sad that this program is ending. It benefited so many for so many years. And it's a real shame that this is our current situation. Now, I would also like to highlight, in the same calendar week that the community was notified of the learning path being discontinued, we also received a very nicely printed handout, a mailing from the district highlighting the 2 warrant articles that are most important to your administration, asking us for more money. How do we rationalize canceling educational opportunities, upending our students, sending them to completely different schools, rearranging their cohorts, and then wanting to approve these that you so desperately want money from us for? Taxpayers, parents, students, everyone is feeling this, and we're sick of it. I have been at this microphone since 2022 telling you we could not afford this. No amount of money that you spent on this is going to sway my vote. Now, number 2, I would like to address the capital reserve fund. I am voting yes. However,
Ms. LaFauci, I've been clear,
LaFauci,
we're not,
LaFauci.
LaFauci, excuse me. We are not electioneering here, so please, your own personal beliefs and how you will be voting tomorrow cannot be shared.
That's
Thank you.
fine. I would like to reclaim my few moments of that. Wanting to help the students of this district with the capital reserve that we so desperately need is something that we all want to say yes to. We do. But the methods you have gone about this, the way you have forced this on us when we have told you time and time again, we cannot afford this. You are going to make a new poverty class in this town. Elderly, veterans, single income households, the disabled, renters. You are driving out too many people.
You've regained your time. Could you please wrap it up? Thank you.
Yes, I will wrap it up, Mr. Chair. I hope that this board, for the remainder of your session this month, and the new board going forward, can please have some courtesy for the taxpayers that are broke. You are going to drive us out of our homes if you continue with the restructuring and the new plans that you have set for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Good evening, Wilbert Danger, 7 Railroad Ave. So, listening to her talking, I have a question for you guys. Who basically like the main funding for this project? Who's gonna responsible for that? Is like citizens, or you guys like have some type of other plan for that?
Superintendent.
So, Wilbert, this is time for, you can certainly ask questions, but to make sure you get the full allotment of your 3 minutes, we're not going to answer these questions at this time, so.
Okay. So basically, this is what I'm thinking about. Myself, I have like over like $100,000 loan, school loan. So I'm still paying loan and paying rent, everything. So let's like this program, like the new school program, when you add it like together, it's gonna be like a lot of like basically parents who's been parents who still in school, like paying loan plus like this like taxes thing. It's gonna be like a lot of us. I think like the new school program, seeing like the picture is very nice, to tell you the truth, but is it worth it? No, because it is too much for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilbert.
Well, good evening. Richard Tripp, 44 Wyndham Road. Carney, did you enjoy your year?
I did. It's been fun.
Did you learn anything?
I very much did.
Yes, I learned a lot in my elected positions. It's not as easy as it looks, you know. Paul, how many years have you been on the board?
Just, this is,
Forever?
no, not really.
As many as Phyllis has been on the council?
No. I haven't been around that long, but I've been working with the town for a long time, so.
Good. Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you, Carney. I was wondering, I know you're hoping that both of the bond warrants will pass. Do you have any plans of what you're going to do if neither of the bond warrants pass? I know that you have plans, that you have plans to repair the schools, but, you know, if neither of the bonds pass, what are you gonna do? You know, because they're, you know, even the board has admitted that they're in sad shape. You know, and it also almost becomes a safety issue if, you know, they're not repaired. I thought it was interesting when you said that, you know, people were electioneering. I'd like to ask you what you think your constant, you know, repeating of the going forward plan is, if it's not electioneering. You know, it seems like if anybody comes up and disagrees with you, you slap them down with the electioneering, you know, explanation. Well, I've listened to your school board presentation many times, and it is informative, but I would believe it's electioneering. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Hi, Jenna Paradise, Hubbard Hill Road. I had a question, and I know that you just said that you weren't taking questions, but maybe if I ask it, it might come up in conversation later. I had somebody ask me the other day a question, or today, and I didn't know the answer to it. I know that there was something about the state aid, there being $13 million left to fund schools, and we were like number 7th on the list in front of the schools. I was wondering when that resets. Like, you know, if it's 13 million left, when does it go back to whatever number or more aid be added? And the second thing I wanted to ask is, I understand that if the school passed and we wanted to wait and not break ground until later, until we see if we got the aid, so say come November when new seats are up in Concord. So if we didn't want to break ground until then, and we had to take out the bond before then, if we ended up getting aid later, would that just go directly to the bond, or would that in some way affect the taxpayers? Because I know it's being portioned out within so many years. So would any of that be able to go back to the taxpayers, or would just shorten the amount of time that taxpayers would get hit with that money? That was my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna.
Catherine DeLay, 39 South Main Street. Big day tomorrow. We've got a big vote going on. And there's still unanswered questions. I'd like to make that clear, even for those of you that don't agree. When it comes to transportation, we haven't had that finalized yet. Just at the council meeting, we were told that those plans won't be available until after our vote. We were told that they've reduced buses. I'm wondering, has there been a survey that's gone out to our families with the new districting so that we actually know what that busing looks like? Are we aware of the start and end times for school? Have we looked into these bus routes, and what is the longest any of our students are going to be on these buses? If we're busing the intermediate and middle schools together from first pickup to second school, what's that duration? What's the longest that a student's going to be on a bus? That's something to consider. When we're thinking about the capital improvements and the money that you want us to spend, I can see that there's some costs in there for investigative costs. It would be really helpful to have that information as far as you have a line item there, so that's investigative. So what happens when, is there an additional cost associated with that if that work needs to be done? How much money is that gonna be? Where is that money gonna come from? Or maybe am I misunderstanding what investigative costs means? As far as capital improvements, if our new school that you're proposing doesn't pass, And then, but capital improvements does, that money that's allotted there, is that going to be spread out over the remaining schools, including South Range? And is that money that's in that pool going to be available to cover all of those basic needs to bring it up to that standard that you're asking for those schools to be brought up to? Or are you going to be asking for more money again? Have we thought out that plan? That's one of the Plan Bs we've been asking about. Also, just at the town council meeting, it was brought up that the enrollment study, that information won't be available again until after the vote. So one more major piece of this puzzle that you're asking our citizens to vote on, and we're missing major information. Mr. Dugan, it's amazing that you won't look at me while I'm asking these questions and making this statement.
Literally taking notes.
Yep. So I would like to know, when we did the deliberative session, we were told that the enrollment study had been done in the fall. Is that correct? And also, when will those results be shared with the community? And how can we vote on all of this if all of these big pieces to this puzzle aren't put together for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Is there anyone else that would like to approach for delegates and individuals? Not seeing any, I will close delegates and individuals. Does anyone on the board have anything to respond to?
Yeah, just to answer your question regarding transportation. So the project plan that the administration did early last year had March and April timeframe for transportation to be settled. We're currently meeting as a group, as a committee, to resolve and work out the future for those questions you just had on transportation. So we are in our timeline of expectations for that particular question. You know, anyone can go online and look at the administration's project plan. You'll see when things are supposed to be completed and when they're completed by. So just that's regarding transportation.
I would also like to just comment on what happens if both of them get voted down. I feel like that's a valid question, and I appreciate you bringing it up, because that's what this process is that you elect a board, we go to the committees, we do the work, we read the research and make the decisions on what we're going to put forward to you to vote on, and some of that comes with trust. Some of that comes with that everyone sitting up here is doing their absolute best and researching and doing the work to get what's in front of you on that ballot tomorrow. And we wouldn't bring forward that if we didn't believe in it. So what happens if you vote it down? Well, then we're in the same exact position that we've been in for the last 15 years, where we haven't done anything at all. So we have an opportunity this year to really make progress and really get something done. So what happens? Well, Mr. Tripp, you're very familiar with it. Nothing changes. And we continue to send kids to the facilities that are falling apart because our community is not investing in our schools. I don't agree with that. So let's hope that that doesn't happen tomorrow.
Can I address the enrollment study? We have the enrollment study. It's final. It's been provided to all 7 board members. Is that something that we are able to make publicly available, prior to, I know Davis Demographics is presenting at the next meeting. But, I mean, can we make the study available as soon as possible?
Yeah, I mean, the Cliff Notes version is, as we said all along, as Davis Demographics has said, is that there's a plateau for really the next 10 years with limited increases and limited decreases.
I mean, I've gone over the report. I've talked to you guys about it. I mean, all 10 years of the study have us under the threshold to maintain our current class sizes at both West and Hood. And all the elementaries are well under the threshold to maintain current class sizes, and that's under the restructuring. And, one thing that I'll also note, if you look at the enrollment study, it provides data for the current lines, and that actually shows under our current lines with 5 elementaries, the BARCA zone is growing. And that zone, by the end of the enrollment study, is going to reach the maximum capacity under our current class sizes. So it's likely that at some point, no matter what happens, we're going to have to redistrict. I mean, that's just part of living in a school district that has more than one type of school. You know, kids grow up, they go through the school system, and, you know, their parents don't move out and have another family move in right behind them. You know, that house no longer is putting kids into the district. So, you know, all the time, you know, the capacities of the school are shifting around based on where people live in town. And, you know, redistricting, no matter what we do, is always going to be something that's going to happen here.
If I may, I just want to say that there's also been past reports that have tracked population size, and they've been pretty on point, and they've gone 5, 10, 20 years, and we can take that into consideration as well while we're waiting, because what it's tracked is, it's been pretty accurate. So I just want to throw the 2 cents in there on that.
But I think the simple question was, can we make it available? So
Publicly.
giving people the information that's in there is great,
I think they agree
but
that they can put it
I
up.
think it's
Yeah.
important that people want to see it to see it.
Because you have access to all of the past ones, but not this one yet.
Cliff, are we able to get that report up on the website as soon as we can?
I'm working on it right now and can have it up in a minute if you want. That's up to you, though. I'm not going to post it until you say yes.
Please do.
Yeah, is there any information? I would just double check, is there, sorry, I would just make sure there's no information in there that would, that's, okay. Right. Nothing, no private information, so that's good.
Does it say draft? I think it does say draft, right?
As it should, though.
We were told that it,
Because we haven't officially accepted it, that's why I'm asking if it says
Yeah.
draft.
yeah.
And I believe it does.
I believe it does, too.
I do not see draft anywhere on it.
What I saw, maybe that was the original one.
It says final.
It does.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and we were told that it was final.
To answer the question about state aid, there is $13 million left. That's, the legislature has decided to make $50 million available for a biennium, so that was last year and this year. The decision to continue to fund that would be up to the state legislature. And I don't know if Jane can answer this question during the business administrator updates or if we need more time, but I do not know the answer exactly if we can wait to break ground on a new school. I believe Concord has done that, but I don't know if that's because they're reapplying for it, but I don't know if you know that answer, but.
I feel like I'd rather call the state and get a definitive answer on that.
I believe that answers all the questions from the public. So we will move on to the restructuring plan. So pass it over to Joe, and we'll go hear an update on that.
Okay, as we've been doing for last few meetings, it just kind of go through the big categories and give you some updates on changes. So in terms of curriculum and co-curricular kind of category, last time we were here, we talked a little bit about extended daycare programs. We believe that's an important piece of the puzzle for the intermediate school. So we met with 2 organizations that submitted proposals for an extended day program, and both have really great sort of organizational structures, and we're going to kind of review those and then make a decision, moving forward about which program to put in place. But the key important piece is that we want to ensure that there is both before and after school care for families, very similar to what we have at the existing elementary schools, because we do have a number of 5th grade students that utilize those programs in all of our schools. So we have a belief that those current fourth graders who will be fifth graders next year, and those fifth graders that will be sixth graders next year. Likely a good percentage of them will continue to probably access that program. So that's something that we're working on. We also have posted openings for 2 positions at the one at the middle school, one at the intermediate school, and we are reviewing applicants and we'll be conducting interviews for those open positions very shortly. And then I think the next thing on the agenda, we have been asked to do an updated presentation about sort of the overview of the intermediate school, the curriculum, the instructional plan, some scheduling pieces, course offerings, after school. So there's a much more detailed presentation coming up. So it's a continuation of the presentation we gave in August, which gave an overview of those things. Obviously, we need to continue to work through some of the other finer details. As has been raised tonight, the transportation plan is still ongoing, and that will help us determine start and end times. Although we are going to show you a proposed schedule that is just based on a tentative start time, just because we need to pick a time in order to show you what it would look like. In terms of special education, we are currently interviewing for some open positions we have in our categorical programs. Just a reminder, our categorical programs are NECC, although that's a partner program, and ISLE and Project Me. As you see here, there's some things we're still working on. Laura, anything else you want to add to this, or any detail?
No, I think that pretty much covers everything. Can't hear you.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
That's okay. No, I think that pretty much covers everything. We do have some retiring teachers, so we are interviewing for those positions as well. And as always, we are looking for paras and staff for our NECC program. And that's just kind of an ongoing piece. And speech paths, if you know any.
They are worth their weight in gold, speech pathologist. In terms of the redistricting process, nothing has really changed since our last meeting. However, we've been trying to continue to give updates on enrollment and make sure that families know about our school site locator that's on the website. So right on the main page, I believe it's under quick links, but Cliff's just going to confirm that. There's a 2024-2025 school locator, and that helps families to see the new residency zones. I know I always steal Austin's thunder, but it's built into this slide. We're continuing to take kindergarten registrations. At the time when we sort of last worked on this slide, we had 244 students registered. That's of 3-7. He might have more updated info, but you'll have to stay tuned to get that stuff. And then we will be planning communication out to all those Derry Village families toward the end of this month to just make sure everybody's clear on the elementary school that their child will be assigned to for next year.
Joe, the site locator is under the families section.
Under the families section. So again, on our main website under families, you can see the school site locator. Thanks, Cliff. So as we've talked about recently, we've been working with the leadership team to begin planning for some transition activities for staff and students and families. So we have set up some informational nights in the evenings for families. So right now, all 4 elementary schools will be hosting an informational night on Wednesday, May 22nd. Intermediate will be hosting an informational night for families and students on Wednesday, May 29th. And middle school will be hosting a night on Monday, June 3rd. Tried to make sure that they were on 3 different weeks because we recognize some families may have children in all 3 of those levels. That can be challenging. We also recognize that there are lots of things going on in the months of May and June, so we are trying to get the word out soon. As of now, obviously this is several months in advance. We'll also be sending out electronic notifications to families, so this won't be the only time that it's brought up. We've also going to be dedicating early release day activities for staff in May to some transition activities to help prepare for next year. We are also still workshopping some ideas for end of the year and summer activities. We have, I think I shared this in a past update, we have contracted with Adventure Lore, which is a company that has done some work with our students and staff before to do some team building transition activities in the fall for students. We know that's kind of a little ways off, and we'll have some things before then.
I do have just a quick question. Could you talk a little bit more detail of how exactly you're going to be having those conversations with school bus drivers or staff? Because I know that you said info nights, but is there a different strategy to make sure that the staff in the facilities feel like they're coming along with us into this transition of the 5, 6, 7, 8, and they know where they're going and they feel like confident in that process and that transparency of information is being shared? Would you feel like you're there?
Well, I think I think if you asked different people, you probably get different answers. So we've tried to have ongoing open dialogue with staff members, but there are a lot of moving pieces. And so one of our goals for providing preliminary assignments in November was to try to keep the information flowing and help people to work through some of that. But again, there were things that we didn't know in November, and then that we knew in December, and then we knew more in January. So it is kind of an ongoing process. In terms of the logistical planning of transition activities, the real first dedicated time in which we're going to really have time for all professional staff to work on this is May 14th. That, I think I said May 14th. That early release day in May. And then there will also be some time allocated at the very end of the school year that teachers will have for some of that transition. It's a little more challenging for some of our other staff members in the district. I know you mentioned bus drivers. We don't have a lot of control over bus driver staffing because they don't work for us. They're contracted employees through First Student. But we have had a lot of conversations and dialogue with the management staff at First Student, so they, I think, understand all of the logistics around this restructuring. And in fact, in this slide, I just wanted to highlight that we spent a lot of time in the beginning of the year focusing on teachers and other professional staff members. We did a couple different surveys, one last spring and then another one in the fall. And then we did preliminary assignments in November. We updated those preliminary assignments in January based on requests made by staff and retirements and other moving pieces. But paraprofessionals is another very large group of staff members. It's probably our second largest category. I don't know if anybody is going to test me on that, but it's more than 100 staff members, the vast majority of which are represented by the AFSCME union. So we worked on a survey for preferences for that group, and that went out prior to February vacation. Last I checked, I think, as of 3/7, we had 105 responses. I actually saw it today. I think we had more than 110. So we're probably at a point where nearly 100% of our active paraprofessionals have filled out that preference survey. I know that Laura has been looking at it, and we're going to be using that to help make preliminary placements for paraprofessionals. I've also said this in the past, their paraprofessionals are incredibly essential to the operations of our school district. And in some ways, they're a little harder to place because they're more fluid. They don't have just one location, for lack of a better way of saying that. So many of our paraprofessionals are under the umbrella of special education assistants. They work with lots of different kids, sometimes across multiple grade levels. We also have reading assistants, we have math assistants. So we have people that are doing really diverse types of jobs, and so telling them where their preliminary placement is going to be is a little more challenging because their jobs are so fluid. But our goal is to get out some preliminary placements for those people ASAP. And then we're also planning for discussions with our secretarial staff. So again, thinking about categories of employees, we have custodians, we have secretarial staff as two really big important groups. Again, they're typically tied to a location and a specific job function. So we're going to need to shift people around in those two areas.
Is there anything that you guys need on your end to have that process go smoother, or something that you've learned from this last year of, hey, we really got to try to address this more gracefully, or just because I do want to press the importance of making sure that we're transparent in this process and that we are providing that respect, that this is people's careers, this is people's lives, that this does mean something. And I understand that sometimes we don't have all of the information to be able to widely distribute what we're thinking, and it wouldn't be, one, the right thing to do, in my opinion, but still being able to provide that big picture trust that and transparency of feeling like they're connected to this and that they're coming along with us, from the janitorial staff to the bus drivers to, because I went and got my haircut in Salem, and my hairdresser was a bus driver, and we talked for 20 minutes, and she told me all of her worries and what she was scared on, and I want to make sure that we're hearing those and we're getting those points across. So.
I can speak to the paraprofessionals that are special ed assigned. They're assigned every year based on IEPs and student needs. There have been years where we've had to move people's school, staff schools because of a student maybe moving to a different program, or needs in a certain school maybe have increased. We often have students that move within the district to another school, and they may or may not have had a one-on-one. That would involve their one-on-one moving to another school. So that's something that we consider every year for those staff members. This year will be, obviously different with Derry Village closing, but the staff will be following the students, or at least the need for the staff will be following the students, and we'll be taking, much like with the teachers, taking their preferences into account to make those decisions. But for special ed, it's based on student need.
Just with the knowledge that this is a very, we're doing a lot of transitions, and we're putting our staff through a lot, that as much transparency and as much of that community that we can build, the better. And I know that you guys work your butt off to do that already. I know that that's not, I'm not trying to say that you're not doing it. I'm just saying maybe a little bit more of a detailed approach and plan on how we plan to do that in these transitions to come.
Other than more hours in the day, to finalize your question, I'm not sure what else we need from, yeah. In terms of facilities, at our last meeting, we had talked a little bit about an RFP process regarding a moving company. So that was posted on the 15th. And I believe, Jane, you've got a mandatory walkthrough with companies later this week. And we have contracted with a civil engineering firm for the design of the playground. And as you can see, there's still a few more pieces that we'll be working on. Jane, anything else that's not addressed here that you want to? Okay.
Yeah, just a quick question. How many applicants have we gotten so far for the moving company?
We won't know until they arrive for the mandatory walkthrough, but Tracy, whenever we put an RFP out, she will contact local agencies. She checks with other schools. I know that Austin had talked to some other superintendents to get companies that they've worked with. So I think she reached out to at least eight companies. So yes.
As we talked briefly about earlier, so the Transportation Subcommittee is still reviewing transportation scenarios from first students. So we're gathering all that information, and I think the plan is to make a presentation to the board at the next meeting on the 26th. I think that's my last slide because that's all the categories, but you guys have any questions about restructuring plan?
Yeah, I have a couple things, Joe. First, thanks for the updates on the transition activities. Looking forward to future updates. Two big things. So sports and clubs for 5th and 6th grade. I don't know if there's anything sort of concrete or in the works or anything you can share. I know that's big. A lot of folks are asking me, having a lot of conversations. We definitely need to have some sort of plan with regards to activities for 5th and 6th graders, so there's not a gap in a missed year, and families and student athletes aren't and folks taking advantage of clubs aren't dependent upon rec league or outside of the school. I think a lot of families really look forward to getting their kids into athletics and clubs and other such things. And then obviously with 7th and 8th grade, that, you know, I know it's going to help with some of the sports and some of the teams that maybe haven't been able to field the team due to lack of participation, but there are going to be some teams and some clubs that have a surplus of kids going out and wanting to be a part of it. So if, as soon as possible, if you guys can start giving us some updates around what 5th and 6th grade sports and clubs look like, that would be great. The other piece, Mrs. LaFosse brought it up earlier, summer learning path. You know, obviously we found out at the same time everybody else did. I know we can't look back and say shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? A million things we could have done, but what I want to know is the cost of the program, and then what would it take to put the program back in place, right? Hopefully my daughter's not watching. Well, hopefully she is, but she took advantage of it. Very helpful. 6th grade math was tricky. She really got a lot out of the couple of days a week that she went. 7th grade math has been much better. One student, one story, certainly can be anecdotal, but from folks I've been speaking to since Friday and what I've seen and what I've heard and what folks have shared and what you all shared in the email, the program's successful. We got to have the program, right? We talk all about education, we talk about students, we talk about how all these things affect and the positives. That's one that we need to figure out. So I'm going to ask that you guys come up with a solution or a plan as to how you're going to fit that back in and bring that back to the board, and then we can all have the discussion, but that's a big one. We need to have this program. So, you know, I don't know if you know the cost off the top of your head and as it relates to the total budget, and I know that it was funded by ESSER funds and things like that, but we got to have it.
So Jason,
Yes.
I think the activity was written for a little over 140. The actual cost that we paid for the most recent summer learning program was $125,000.
Okay. So I guess my ask then is, how do we find a way to put that back in? Obviously, it probably doesn't happen until the budget passes, but please and thank you. Let's look for a solution there and see how we can make that happen.
Do you know how many students took advantage of that program?
Is this on, Joe?
It is. It was.
I got to ask Owen why the button's on top now, because I can't see it anymore. So can I give a little talk about the summer learning program since it came up?
Participation then first, before you do that?
What's that?
Can you do the participation first before you do that?
Yes. Average of 164 students in the 3 years.
Pretty big.
How many per year?
164 per year,
believe-
average.
Average.
Per year, right?
On average. it was
164 per year.
164.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty good participation.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
So when I began my career here, excuse me, I don't have my normal 30 font, so I'm going to have to wear my glasses. When I first began my career here, we had an in-house summer school program. Due to declining participation, summer school was no longer offered here in Derry shortly after I came on board. For a couple of years or so, we bused a small number of students to Salem, and then that was canceled. And I think there might have been 1 year we tried to get some kids to Manchester. All along, when I was at Gilbert H. Hood as principal, and I know it continues to this day, we work with some 8th graders who struggle during the year so that we can get them prepared to get over to Pinkerton Academy, and that's been going on consistently. For a number of years prior to COVID, the Derry Cooperative School District did not have any type of a summer program other than the special education and Title I students. In the summer of 2020, due to the pandemic, we began offering the Personalized Math and Literacy Edmentum Exact Path Program. It's from the Northwest Evaluation Association Measures of Academic Progress, the NWEA, you may have heard that, the assessment. And the Edmentum Exact Paths creates individualized learning paths for students, each and every student, personalized to them in both literacy and math. And we not only offer that in schools, but we've been offering that during the summer program, even when we've had the summer learning program. And there have been some parents who have opted to utilize just the Edmentum Exact Paths. They can do that on their own time. You can do it, it's 24/7, 7 days a week. You can be on vacation and take a few minutes and hop onto that. Then this coming summer will be no different. We will continue to offer the Edmentum Exact Paths. We went to the school board, talked to them back then. We found the money in the budget. We had a small number of students with Exact Paths. We paid to have every single student signed up so that every student in the Derry Cooperative School District would have that. So the Summer Learning Path Program, an on-site summer instructional program, was developed during the 2021 school year and has been in operation for the past 3 summers. It has always been funded through the federal grant distributed to schools in response to the pandemic. You've probably heard the term ESSER funds or ESSER grants. And we've also used these to fund the science specialists, the math intervention program, other initiatives, and of course the summer learning program. A primary intention of ESSER grants was to provide temporary supplemental money to school districts to implement programs that would address learning loss associated with the pandemic. When we started the Summer Learning Path program and initiated other ESSER funding projects, we knew they were not permanent, as funding would no longer be available with the expiration of ESSER grants. I agree with the frustration of that some of my school board members have. We should have brought this to the budget, FAC, and the budget committee meetings. We could have talked about this then, and a decision could have been made at that point whether or not the school board was willing to put this into the budget. That's on me. That was my mistake, and I apologize for that. That said, I will reemphasize, we have said so many times over and over, these ESSER funds are not a never-ending supply of money. And the expectation is that many of these programs funded by ESSER would go away due to budget constraints. And that's basically what we were planning to do. But we have no problem talking with the school board, and if the school board wants to look at adding the necessary funding to have the summer learning program, path program, then that's what we will do. So moving forward, we will have those discussions. We will get more specific information, and we'll discuss with the school board and then come back to this meeting with an answer.
I have a couple other questions, if you might be able to answer it. So you said 164 students on average last year. It's 3 years. Has that been trending in an upward direction or in a downward direction?
The very first year we had somewhere in the 130s. I do believe, if you think back to the pandemic and all that, there was probably some parents that didn't want their students to come in person. So we still had the remote option going at that time. So I apologize for that. I don't have any numbers of kids that might have been involved in the remote situation. But these are for numbers of kids that showed up. And then in the second year, we had a high of, I believe it was 186. And last year, we had, that dropped off a little bit to 173.
And are those unique students, or if it's over a 6-week
Some of
period?
those students are, we have a number of options with the summer learn. We have movement breaks, and we have social emotional, and it's open to the Title I students as well as kids that are in special ed, and we don't have that divided up. So some of those kids may be part of the Title I program. Some of those kids may be part of the extended school year program so some of them may be counted twice if you think of it that way. But they did, that number of students did utilize at least a portion of the Summer Learning Path program.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see information on and so that we
can
have a
break
full
that
picture. Yeah, because, I mean, just doing quick math, 164 an average per year, it's over a 6-week period, is that correct?
It's a four-week period. It's Monday through Thursday mornings for 4 weeks. Usually the week after July 4th.
So it's an average 10 students per day.
You're
Quick math,
better
yeah.
at the math
Yeah,
than I am,
160 divided by 4 weeks, or 16 days, is roughly 10 per day. Okay. Any other questions about, go ahead.
Thank you for bringing up the summer learning path. I do think that that's something that we need to bring back, find a way to do it and do that. I understand space may be a problem, so that's something else we'll have to look at, or somebody will have to look at. But I think it's important. It's shown, it's one thing that we can see results with our children, and it's important to bring back. I do have a couple of questions about the other parts of the presentation. The categorical programs, the staff that we have to hire, or we're trying to bring in, are those new positions? Because we have added programs at the middle school, or whatever they're 5, 6, 7, 8?
There will be 2 new special ed positions.
Thank you. Hold on, I'm gonna put on my glasses. The cost of the transition activities and the moving, is that in the budget? Or are they in the budget? I guess is better English.
No, they're not.
Thank you, Jane. And the playground, where I love having a playground, but what about a playground at Deep? Have we thought about that? Is that anywhere in a plan?
So, yes, we've been meeting with 2 different playground firms who have both gone out and looked at the property out behind where their deep entrances, and both have done designs. So we're working on both Deep and the West Running Brook Playground at the same time.
So is that cost, is the cost that we've seen for a potential playground, is that for both of them, or are we still working on the total cost for both?
They're still giving estimates.
Okay.
But the cost we believe the cost for the Deep Playground will come out of IDEA funds, federal funds. And I'm trying to take the cost for the playground at West Running Brook out of ESSER funds.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My memory is a little hazy last year. My wife was on a curriculum committee, I believe it was last spring. Weren't teachers involved in that process, if I remember right? Because she had a conversation with a few of her teachers from Barca and had some really positive feedback. So teachers were involved. Just clarifying, and I'm sure you mentioned survey, you mentioned a lot of different things, but I think a generalization of saying teachers weren't involved in the process is incorrect, and just from my own experiences with my own wife being part of the process too.
So yeah, that's on. Yeah, teachers were part of that process last spring and summer.
All right, anything else for the restructuring plan presentation that Joe presented? All right.
I believe there were 5 meetings, but we actually added yeah, there might have been 6 because I know there was a meeting where we focused on it was a teacher discussion only. So like we separated the parent group and the teacher group, and then we didn't have enough time, so we agreed to schedule another one. So off the top of my, it was last year, so it's hard for me to remember exactly, but it was between 5 and 6. That's what Kim believes.
Correct me, it was teacher, facility staff, and parents?
So there were teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators, school board members, and parents.
I mean, all along the process, even going back to the educational visioning that we contracted with, I can't remember, Lovely Brensinger and contingency, teachers were also included in that as well. I remember survey results regarding, the biggest thing, the one thing that sticks out is outlets. It came out of that, but
And I want to
there's been
commend you guys' efforts in organizing that, because I went to 5 and I thought you guys did a fantastic job, and everything that I heard back from teachers at least, or people a part of that process, they equally felt a part of it and they felt excited by it, and I want to commend you for the effort that you've put into making sure that we communicate this and do it together. I think you've done a great job.
All right, we will move on to the next portion, which is a curriculum update, as Joe had alluded to in that prior presentation. So looking forward to seeing that. I believe it's going to be you and Kim, I assume?
Yes. So that's a good segue. We were just talking about the intermediate school, that committee that was formed last spring. So because I will likely forget, so I'm going to just say it at the outset, a lot of the stuff that Kim and I worked to prepare in this presentation was really the work of that team. So we don't, if I forget to credit all those people who did all that work, I'm sorry. That's why I'm crediting them right now up front. In fact, some of this information we presented to the board and publicly in August. So some of these slides contain some details that were presented back in August, but we've been asked to provide more details, and we're happy to say we've got a little bit more information for you. Kim, I'm sorry I have my back to you, but you just talk over me if I forget something, and she knows it all, but I have a big mouth, so I'll start out. So there's a lot of detail here, so we'll provide as much context as we can, but obviously answer questions. So this is a very high-level overview of what the intermediate school looks like, with some round numbers. Estimating somewhere in the range of 645 students. It ebbs and flows and changes day to day based on current enrollment. That's broken into 5th grade and 6th grade. In the 5th grade, we have 2-person teams and about 14 classrooms. In the 6th grade, we have 3-person teams, so you need a multiple of 3, so we have 15 classrooms. The school community at West Running Brook is made up of pods. There are 6 pods in that building with 5 full-size classrooms in each pod. So those groups that I just talked about will be spread across all 6 pods. As a way of creating smaller schools and smaller communities within larger schools, we're going to be organizing the school also into something called houses. So this next slide provides you a bit of a sort of a graphic understanding of how houses work. So at West Running Brook, a house will be made up of 2 pods. And in each pod, in 5 of the 6 pods, there will be some 5th grade classrooms and some 6th grade classrooms. I'm just wanted to highlight. Pod 6 looks a little different. If you're doing the math, you know that 14 and 15 are numbers that don't play really well together. 2s and 3s don't play really well together. So in that sixth pod is actually a little bit smaller, and it's just got 4 fifth grade classrooms in it. The other 5 pods, the plan is to have 2 fifth grade classrooms and then 3 sixth grade classrooms. So that's a sort of a layout of the building, and if it helps your brain to think about the building this way, West Running Brook has kind of got almost like 3 prongs to it, and each prong has a first floor and a second floor, so there's a pod in each of those prongs. So if you want it, and we don't necessarily, it doesn't need to be this way, but in my mind I think about prong number 1, the first floor, second floor, that's house 1. Prong number 2, the first floor, second floor, that's house 2. Hopefully that makes sense for people, especially if you've been to see the building, it might make even more sense. Teachers and students are kind of housed in that area, so there'll be some common space. The plan is for the 5th grade classrooms, we have a lot of movable walls between rooms. So in most of those 5th grade classrooms, there'll actually be a movable wall separating the 2 rooms. So when the team of 2 want to have the classes together, they'll be able to move that wall down and actually have all the students together. There are also 6 science labs in the building, and 5 of them will be assigned as science classrooms next year for 6th grade. So each of those 5 6th grade teams will have a dedicated science lab associated with it. I can stop and take questions or just keep going and get them at the end. I'll look for body language to see.
Just a question about looping, or will 5th graders in their pods or teams be looping to the 6th grade?
It's a great question, and so the answer right now, the short answer is no. It's not necessarily in the plans to loop the students. If I'm still here next year and people want to talk about looping, I would love to talk about it. Those of you who worked with me at Gilbert H. Hood know that I was a big proponent of looping when I worked there. I looped with my students in 6th and 7th grade. I tried to fight to keep looping in place, but we went away from looping. There are complications with looping programs. It means that staff really have to move every year, which is really challenging. I loved it as a teacher, but I'm only one person. Some people, it's not a great fit. It also can be difficult when the 5th grade and the 6th grade have different structures. So going from teams of 2 to teams of 3, you can't actually keep the groups of kids together. But it's a great idea, and there's some benefits to it.
Can I just ask if you believe that this model will help around the building of community that we were hearing a lot from parents on missing, and then as well the social, emotional, and independent learning, having them in smaller groups and having them transition in this way. Those will be some key areas that we'll see improvements.
We've got a whole slide focused on that.
Amazing.
Kenny. I'm glad
I
you asked
thought
that
as
question.
much.
Obviously, I don't want to get too far off the edge here, but as educators, we think a lot about the developmental appropriateness, the developmental readiness of programming for students, and ensuring that our instructional programming, our structures, our routines, our staffing adequately match up for the developmental needs of the kids. And so what we know about kids is that their needs gradually change over time, and so that our school structures and our practices need to change over time to sort of align with those needs. Years ago when we worked at Hood together, Austin and I remember we read a book with staff called The Gradual Release of Responsibility. And it talks about this idea of at the very beginning, you need to show me how to do things and I'll watch. And then slowly I'll do it in small groups, and then eventually I'll be able to do it by myself. And that's that idea of you don't push somebody into the deep end of the swimming pool. That's not how you, well, I guess some people teach kids to swim that way. I'm not advocating for that style of teaching kids how to swim. So this is a gradual developmental sort of shift that we're trying to make for students. So right now, our elementary students are largely in one classroom with primarily one adult for the majority of the day. They do move to specials. They move as a class to specials. So their social groupings and their sort of the bigness of their environment, I think, is appropriately small for children that are in early elementary ages. What we don't want to happen, though, is to have a big leap as they leave us in 8th grade and go to high school. And as we all know, Pinkerton Academy is the largest high school in the state of New Hampshire. It's an outstanding school. I'm a proud graduate of it. Anthony has said many good things about it. I think he's a pretty proud member of that school. I just recently had a conversation with Derek Lee at Pinkerton, who's the Dean of Academics and Instruction. Is that his exact title? Way to go. And I said, what are the things that you're hearing from students that are the most difficult transition-wise? And he said it's the size and the sheer freedom and just sort of like spread out of space that high school is. Anthony was talking earlier about, unlike a lot of schools, they've got, I don't know how many buildings anymore, but many. And so what we're trying to do is create a developmental approach so that our kids are more and more ready for that high school environment. So the plan for this intermediate school is to marry some of the really best parts of elementary school without pushing them all the way to middle school quite yet, which at middle school we have 4-person teams. So those teams are typically between 80 to 100 students. And right now we're talking about smaller 2- and 3-person teams, but still having students go off to Unified Arts. I do want to just clarify something earlier. Even though they'll be sharing a pod with kids from 6th grade, which we think is a good thing, that you have social groups that are including some kids older, all their classes will be with same grade peers. All of their lunches will be with same grade peers. All of their recesses will be same grade peers. In fact, not only same grade, but same house. So part of the reason that we want I think school, house, team, student, is that they are part of some smaller communities to help build sense of belonging, to help ensure that they develop those skills of independence while not being, like I said, pushed in the deep end. So in terms of the core instruction, some people have asked about what that looks like. So really, in a nutshell, students will have about 200 minutes of dedicated core instruction across 4 subject areas. And I think we've talked a little bit about the 2-person and 3-person teams. We've also built an intervention block in our schedule for 30 minutes every day. This will be within their house, so teams and houses will have some flexibility if they want to do some intervention, or, sorry, Kim reminded me, Tier 2 instruction. So we think about instruction in tiers. Tier 1 instruction is instruction that we give to the whole group. So you might think of it as your typical classroom instruction. Tier 2 instruction is when we start to regroup students based on their academic needs that we determine through assessments or through just classroom observations. Oh, these students need a focused lesson in this area. So that's what Tier 2 looks like. So we typically build into our day something called intervention. Sometimes it's called focus, sometimes it's called flex. I believe at the elementary schools they call it intervention block, which we think of as like Tier 2 instruction. So there's a block built into the schedule for that as well. In terms of Unified Arts instruction, again, this is a bit of a this is some growth here so there are things that are going to be available to these intermediate students that are currently not available to elementary students. So right now, elementary students have 5 specials. 3 of them are taught by teachers, 2 of them are taught by assistants. And those 5 specials are music, PE, and art, library, and computers. And so in most of our elementary schools, probably all of our elementary schools, it's a 5-day schedule. So on Mondays, you might have art. On Tuesdays, you might have PE. And students have about 45 to 50 minutes of specials a day. They go as a class. So this model takes advantage of more of the middle school model. So students would have 2 50-minute periods of UA instruction, which gives us the ability to expose students to a more diverse curriculum. We're excited that our band and chorus students are no longer going to have to come in before or stay after school to get access to those programs. It'll be built into the day. As you guys know, you voted to approve elementary STEM programming, but we'll also have an intermediate STEM program. program, which will be an advanced version of what they're doing at the elementary level. Students will also have a dedicated computer class. These are all taught by teachers. Art will be able to introduce Spanish as a foreign language to students beginning in 5th and 6th grade. Of course, kids will have physical education, and they will also, as we talked about at our last meeting, have a library and media studies course. Typically, because we have trimesters, students get 2 unified arts courses each trimester, so most students will get a total of 6 different unified arts courses over the span of the year. We do, right now, band and chorus are full year programs because those ensembles prepare pieces. They take quite a long time. So that for students that are in either band or chorus, that will fill up 3 of those unified art spots, and they'll have 3 other spots. This next slide, and I want to preface this with, this slide has start and end times of the day. These are not finalized because there's a bullet here that says these are just estimates because we do need to finalize a transportation plan. But what I based it on is using the current start time at Gilbert H. Hood Middle School, which is 7:15, and I pushed it 10 minutes. I shouldn't say I. We worked on this along with other people. So this is just a sample of what a student schedule might look like. So for those families that are wondering what might my child's day look like, I plugged in art and STEM for 2 unified arts classes, but really they could be anything. As you'll see, all 5th and 6th graders have a 25-minute lunch and a 25-minute recess built into their day. They're with same grade students from the same house. So far in all of our schedule iterations, we've been able to make sure lunch and recess are back to back, which is a good thing. I think they allow some rollover between the excitement of those 2 activities. And each house has a different schedule. So another nice thing about trimesters is, if your house has lunch at 11 o'clock in trimester 1, you might have lunch at 11:25 in trimester 2. So we have the flexibility so that kids don't always have the same thing at the same time all year long. So we've had some questions about special education services. So Laura and I and Kim and others have worked on this slide to make sure people have an understanding. In terms of special education services, for the most part, they will largely remain the same. We provide special education services to students in K-8 right now. Right now, the plan is to have roughly 9 special education teachers assigned to the intermediate school. Those are special education teachers. Those aren't categorical program teachers who are also special education teachers, but those are in addition to those 9. So those services will continue to be put in place in accordance with students' IEPs. As Laura, I think, explained earlier, there will also be Project Me, NECC, and ISLE programs, our 3 categorical programs located at West Running Brook. And I think an important note to that is currently we do not have categorical programs at each school at the middle school level. So and even at the elementary school level, right? So there are times currently right now we have NECC and ISLE at Gilbert H. Hood, and we have Project Me at West Running Brook. Okay, so if you're a student who is in one of those programs, you may actually be sent to a school outside of your neighborhood zone, and that's just the nature of where we're at. Because all students in the district will go to this 5-6 school, those students who would maybe otherwise be moved to a different school away from their neighborhood peers will stay with their neighborhood peers. So that was an important piece. Laura, did I leave anything out that you wanted to? Okay. I've been talking a long time. Kim, you ready to interrupt me whenever okay. So Jason, this gets a little bit to your question about extracurriculars and sports. So right now, our belief is that there will not be interscholastic sports in the 5th and 6th grade school at the intermediate school. This is largely related to the governing board, Tri-County Sports. In talking to the other 5-6 schools, they all believe it's in the best interest of their students to not be in that interscholastic program because they have an intramural program at their schools. So our plan is to do intramurals all 3 seasons with our 5-6 students. Now, there's been talk about creating perhaps this may be an oxymoron, a non-league league among the other 5-6 schools. So those schools include Wyndham, Merrimack, and Bedford. I think there's some interest among people in those communities, and if there is interest here, we can make it work. I think it would be nice to try to create some interscholastic opportunities for kids that are sort of outside the traditional governing board of Tri-County. What this also does, though, is we have, right now our elementary schools have much less funds to do extracurricular activities. So in the current budget, they have $4,646 for all of their extracurricular activities. We were able to increase that this year to $6,000 for our elementary schools based on, we had, as you mentioned, we had some sports we couldn't run because we haven't been able to find enough students to field the teams. Because we budgeted that money, we just reallocated it out to clubs and extracurriculars. So fortunately this year, and our schools are utilizing that money. Next year, moving to a plan where we have 6 schools instead of 7, and we have some consolidated interscholastic sports, that budget number, that pot of money still remains the same because it's actually Appendix A of the collective bargaining agreement. So we have a fixed number. We're still working with the DEA. We've gone back and forth with some proposals. I think we have, I don't want to speak for them. I feel really confident that we're about on the same page when it comes to reallocating that pot of money around, which is going to lead to more money available for elementary schools to plan clubs and activities, but also have a sort of a hybrid system at the intermediate level where we'll have, as you see, I've listed some, these are what we call extended activities. So these are outside of the student designed clubs that are listed in Appendix A. Currently, these are not in Appendix A for elementary school students. We're proposing to put these in as standing clubs, and then on top of that, allocate a large sum of money to the intermediate school for what we call student-designed clubs. So you guys, I think, may have been on an email that I sent, feels like months ago, but it might have been a few weeks ago, that answered some questions from a community member that wanted to know the name of every single club that currently exists. And I went through and I dug up all that information. And the thing about that is it changes year to year because students propose clubs. I think there might be a Yu-Gi-Oh club at West Running Brook. I know that there are new clubs all the time. In fact, there's a new club that just started at West Running Brook called Robotech, which is a robotics and robotics and programming club. So there's money set aside in this plan so that the intermediate school can have all those student clubs. I already talked about the extended day program, so we just want to make it clear that built into our plan is a 5-day before school, after school. Recognizing that if the start time is 7:25, I don't know how much people will utilize the before school program because I assume, but both the organizations that came and pitched the proposals to us, we said, are you able to provide a before school program? And they said, if there's a need, absolutely. Maybe it's something where we start out with it, and then if we don't get anybody that wants to drop their kid off at 6:30 in the morning or whatever, then we'll reevaluate. So. And making sure that those programs are tailored to older students. Because we recognize that currently our 5th graders are hanging out with kindergartners in the after-school program, and I'm sure at times they maybe wish that they were not hanging out with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. Not that there's anything wrong with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, but we made it clear that we wanted a program that the activities would be tailored to 5th and 6th graders. So that means taking them outside and playing sports on the fields, using the gym whenever possible, using the library, other school facilities. Kearney, this gets a little bit to your question. So in thinking about social emotional needs of students, we believe that recess and lunch are important. They play a role. All of the schools that we visited when we did our research said, you better have recess. You should plan recess. And as much as you think 6th graders don't want to play outside, they do. So, they said 4 square is a big deal. So you got to make sure you have a paved area for kids. So we've talked a lot about that with Jane. I believe 4 square was part of their looking at their design options.
My son and his friends insist that there be a basketball court. Just putting that.
Yeah, we've talked about that as well. Yeah. We didn't talk. I don't know if you caught it on my the schedule we proposed, but many of our elementary schools have been using morning meeting in their classrooms. Not all of them, and it's a classroom activity. We built in to this schedule 15 minutes of morning meeting time because we think it's an effective way of modeling and reinforcing social skills with students. It's also a great way to build connections between other students and with their advisor teachers. And then we think there's great value in multi-grade social groups with students. So there are mentoring abilities. There's the ability for regrouping of students, especially during intervention, for students who are working on similar topics to work together. Again, this isn't, I don't want to, I got to be careful. Every time I say something, I feel like it gets turned into something else. We're not here proposing that we're mixing grade levels for math or reading or science. Just the option of having kids sharing some space together, 5th and 6th graders. We think that there's going to be informal socialization that's really good for kids, especially when they move up to the middle school. They're going to have gone to school with 50% of the, well, really 100% at some point, but they're going to be moving into a school where they know a bunch of kids because they shared pods with them. So again, Kearney, this addresses some of your questions about transitions. So again, this, I've already talked a lot, and I'm sure people are sick and tired of hearing me, so I'm going to go fast, but answer questions as needed. So we do believe that there needs to be a developmental appropriate bridge, right, that moves from elementary to intermediate to middle to high school. In all of the conversations with, we spoke with parents, and we spoke with administrators, we spoke with teachers at these 5-6 schools. They said one of the really tremendous benefits is these 6th graders stay younger. They stay closer to what we would consider developmentally appropriate behaviors for young students at the grade 6. So that's a good way for students to kind of grow up a little bit more slowly. It's not perfect. In talking with our administration, the feeling is that although there are structural elements that look a little bit more like middle school, 2 UAs, school days a little bit longer, moving classroom to classroom, there are procedures that we will keep in place. Walking kids to their next class as opposed to just releasing them to the wild. So there's a nice ability for us to mix and match some of the things we do in elementary and middle. Increasing team sizes we think is a good thing for students, especially going from 4th grade in one classroom to 5th grade as a team of 2 to 6th grade as a team of 3 to 7th grade as a team of 4. We think those are very appropriate transitions for those kids. And as we already talked about, this idea of school, house, team, classroom really provides some great layers to the school. Lots of cool stuff you can do in a building with 3 houses, whether there be competitions between the houses. I hope students come up with names for their houses. Maybe we come up with some really fun color schemes and things like that. But that's all about the culture of an intermediate school, which we think is really important. All right, I've talked at you for what feels like a half an hour. What questions do you have? Kim will answer all of them.
I just have one quick one. This doesn't limit our flexibility if a child is having, because you say a lot about pods and houses and that they're sticking together. Let's say a child is getting bullied or having a struggle with a particular teacher. This doesn't limit our ability to be flexible and adjust that.
I was joking. I guess I'll answer that. No, not at all. And so there are 7 2-person teams at the 5th grade level. There are 5 3-person teams at 6th grade level. In the unfortunate and pretty rare event that we would need to move a child, we have the ability to do that. I think staff members are tremendous at solving problems, and what is a crisis on Monday can sometimes be resolved by Tuesday with a lot of effort from counseling staff, teachers, administrators. But you're right. I mean, there are times when toxic relationships or bullying could happen, and yeah, this doesn't diminish that flexibility.
No, absolutely, and I have no doubt that you guys handle that with grace, and I've seen nothing less. I just know that a few different parents have come forward and shared that they're concerned about that. And then again, just another opportunity to kind of throw in there, I've loved this presentation, and I just hope that we can transition that to be able to communicate to our teachers on what those little subtleties are that are staying with middle and in introducing elementary. Just how are we going to be able to communicate that in a good way? But I love this. Great job, guys.
I've got a few questions and comments. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about clubs. Obviously now we have 5 elementaries, 2 middle schools, so there's some parity in what clubs are available. I think every school has band, chorus, probably student council. But beyond that, it's kind of a mishmash of what the teachers at that school want to offer, right?
Yeah, when it comes to those clubs, those like I sometimes call them student-created clubs. Probably at the elementary school, it's more teacher-created clubs. But yeah, I mean it's student interest and staff
somebody willing
capacity,
to
interest,
do
Yo-yo
expertise.
club, right?
Say again?
Yo-yo club?
Yeah, Yo-Yo Club at East Derry is a great example that
For
Jody
example,
and
that is at East Derry, but it is not at any other elementary school.
correct.
So
Also, the clubs too, it depends on the funding. So like Title I, so Grinnell and Barca get extra clubs because they're a Title I school. So those are part of our grant. So that is another thing.
So anyway, my point was, once you get up to that 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th level now, you're going to have more parity with the clubs. All of these kids are going to be at one school, and they are all going to have the same opportunities for clubs.
Correct.
All right, and my other question was kind of how this trickles back to the elementaries, right? So, we're taking the 5th graders out of the picture. A lot of the clubs there, extracurriculars, are only offered to upper grade levels. Like I know at Grinnell, chorus is only 4th, 5th, student council is only 4th, 5th. I think band is only 5th. So what kind of trickle-down effect is that going to have to the elementary schools in terms of club offerings?
Yeah, I think some positive sort of flexibility for some of those groups. You're right about band, and the challenging band is a great example of a club that we were concerned about, because I think at 4 of the 5 schools you've got to come either before school, after school, and one of the schools they were able to work it in to the day. But that is a limitation for families that don't have access to getting to school before school starts.
Chorus at Grinnell is tomorrow morning.
Chorus at Grinnell, right. So my thinking is, and I don't want to dictate, because I do think teachers need to pipe in, and administrators too. My thinking is there's an opportunity to expand some of those things. So right now we offer chorus beginning at 4th grade. Could we? I'm not saying it's right or wrong because I've never taught chorus. Could we offer chorus at 3rd and 4th instead of 4th and 5th? Yeah, I mean, somebody, a chorus teacher might say, Joe, that's a terrible idea, and I'll tell you why. But your question is a very good one. I think ski club is another example that might only be offered to certain groups of students. And again, ski club might be an example where the smart people in the room say, hey, slow down, be careful. We don't want certain age students doing this, unless they're with their families. So yeah, tons of flexibility there for that, and more funding too.
We also have the unified arts teachers at the elementary and the 5-6. We've been transitioning and looking vertically just to look at the curriculum and the curriculum wise. And so band has come up, chorus has come up, and how that can trickle down to the younger grades.
All right. I was wondering too, you probably don't have these numbers now, but I was wondering what the level of 6th grade participation is in interscholastic sports.
I don't have that number. I can get that number for you.
I think that would be interesting.
So I'm not gonna guess, but we'll get it.
And I was also going to say too, the model of 2-person teams, one teacher with English and social studies, one teacher with science and math. That's the exact same model that I went through in 6th grade in 1993. So, it's been around for a while.
Are you saying it didn't work, or are you saying
I thought it was great. Yeah.
No, I hear you. me, it was same for me as well.
Yep.
Really?
So I have a little bit more information. I wanted to get a little bit more information about the extended day program. That's a parent-funded or paid-for program, right? So we're not the district isn't paying for that. People need to understand that. Parents need to understand it's just like the elementary schools.
Yes, correct. Just like the elementary schools, and both of the groups that proposed had an option for like 3 days a week, 5 days a week, just mornings, just afternoons, which I think is very similar to the elementary schools. But just because a lot of people don't know this, we actually have a free after-school program at Gilbert H. Hood for middle school students. That's not funded by us. That's funded by the Marion Garish Community Center. They wrote a grant to fund that program. It started in the spring of 2023. And then it's been going all year. So that's nice. And their thinking of that was, for a lot of families, they may not be willing to pay for an after-school program for older students, but it's still a great program. There's a leadership activity set. So by offering it for free, we've been able to get a bunch of kids involved. But the plan is, at the 5-6, it would be a tuition or parent pay program.
Okay, I just wanted to verify that. And the clubs and the extracurricular that we're going to add, are those stipends already in the budget?
Yes, so I don't have the number offhand, but
I don't need a number, I just want to make sure there are a lot that are accounted for.
They are.
Thank you.
Just two observations, questions. First of all, on the excuse me, the Spanish going into now 5th and 6th grade. I wish that we still had, at the middle school level, which we used to have French and German, but we don't. But I think that what's lost is that students that are introduced into language, no matter what that language is at a younger age, are more apt to do better in reading in English. And I think that that's very, very important to understand, that especially when we look at trying to increase the level of achievement in reading, that to say to someone, well, don't worry about speaking another language, just read English. I think that, they're two legs of the same stool here, that language, excuse me, language shares so many different characteristics. And, there are, every country except the United States pretty much is multilingual. But be it as it may, I would still like to see an additional language at the 7th, 8th grade level. And I think that that's something that would be doable, but nonetheless. Second thing is that the beating, I feel like I'm flogging the dead horse again, but it's my last chance to do so. Once again, 5, 6, STEM introduction, awesome. I love it. I love it. Treating 7, 8 STEM as if you're taking music lessons and maybe you don't want to do it, terrible. Somewhat, I'm very, very disappointed. I'm very disappointed that no one has had any long-term plans to fold in technology, especially applied technology. We're seeing people now that are becoming extremely successful in construction trades, in areas of technology that have to do with a host of things, some of it which is still being developed right now. And we're not looking ahead with that. And I've said that before. I've said that I think that STEM or technology education, or whatever one chooses to call it, should go hand in hand with the science and math curriculum. But at least we're getting some STEM into the 5th grade now, which is good. But those were my two thumbs ups and thumbs downs.
So we're going to continue with the tech ed program at the 7-8 school. We just want to make sure you are aware of that.
I understand, yeah.
Yep, okay. And really that tech ed program has grown, and you've been a big part of it. We have moved, when I was a kid, it was wood shop and metal shop, and has become robotics, drones, programming. The stuff that happens in those 2 classrooms right now is really, really tremendous. We just chose not to call it STEM at the 7-8, but in many ways it's a continuation of our program. So it's great. We agree with you there.
I think you guys summed that up very well. I don't have anything to add, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. So we have a facilities update. I don't know if the facilities committee has anything they want to share, or if Austin or Joe or team, any updates there? Okay. Then we will move on to the business administrator's update. Jane, ball's yours.
Okay, there's an attachment that was presented in your board packet. I did have a revision today, which I did email to all of you late this afternoon, and it was just a revision in the salary expenditure line items. So on the front page, we went over some revenues. I know we're right in line with all of our projections. I did make adjustments when we were doing tax rate setting to account for the increased increased interest rates. So we are seeing an increase in that line item. Also, we're still keeping a good eye on Medicaid to hopefully we can meet our goals and our projections for Medicaid for next year. So right now we're showing a surplus on revenue of about $511,000. Under expenditures, we have them broken down by object code, and that's where we made the correction under the salaries, and also under expenditures by function code. So right now for expenditures, there is a unspent balance of $2,114,000. Keep in mind for salaries that is not encumbered in here are the salaries for the retirements that will be at the end of the year, and substitutes, because their salaries don't, they're not part of encumbrances on a weekly basis. So just to keep an eye on that. And then we'll have one more Pinkerton invoice that will be coming out in later this month. I've also included a bank statement by our treasurer. I've also included financials for our food service department. And each of my departments put in their update. Christina Lebelzik put in her update on the total amount that's still outstanding for of meals that have not been paid on. Currently, we're at $26,738. We have had a lot of families have been paying off large outstanding balances, so thank you to Christina for all of your work on that. Again, we've identified how many of those families are on the free or reduced or paid. And again, we always like to encourage families at any time of the year, should your financial situation change, please reach out either to Christina, or if you can certainly go online and fill out our free and reduced application. They're still available for the end of next year. And as a reminder, if your child does qualify for free or reduced, that means that they get their breakfast for free. So we really like to encourage our kiddos in the morning to try to participate in our breakfast program. We have lower participation than we'd like, considering the number of students that we have on free and reduced. We'd really like to boost that, which kind of leads into the second part of her update. Last week was, we were participating in the National School Breakfast Week, which was March 4th through March 8th. They celebrated the importance of a nutritious school breakfast for our students. And part of doing that, they had a celebration over at Grinnell School, including staff from New Hampshire Hunger Solutions, also from the New Hampshire Department of Education. The Derry News also attended. There were staff from here. I know Kim was there, Joe, Austin, Brenda stopped by. We all stopped by. The food service department did an outstanding job, decorated the cafeteria. They had balloon arches and decorations and prizes for kids. And they took a lot of their breakfast items and put them into little small portions and little single serving size cups and passed them out to students, trying to get them to try the pancakes, try some of the other items, the bagels that are on our breakfast item menu, to try to get them interested in participating in our breakfast program. I have to say, when I was over there on Wednesday, it was honestly so much fun to see the kids really engaged in it, and they loved having their picture taken at the balloon arches and their classes, and they really loved the whole thing. And so impressed with our cafeteria staff over at Grinnell, as I am with all of our cafeterias, but in particular that day, they really went all out to make it such a wonderful event for our students and our staff. Our staff were really into it, and I want to thank them so much for the job that they did. And hopefully out of this, we'll get a lot more students who will participate. And I also want to comment, I can't tell you how many times the representatives from New Hampshire Hunger Solutions and the Department of Ed, Department of Child Nutrition from Department of Ed, commented that how amazing Grinnell School was, and the staff and the students. Department of Ed had only planned on being there, I think, for 1 or 2 lunches, and asked if they could stay for the day because they didn't want to leave. So they stayed through all of our lunches over at Grinnell. So I just really wanted to make sure I threw out kudos to them for such a job well done over there. And then I put in updates for our facilities. So some of them had pictures. To go along with it, they did remove a rotted tree that was from the front of Gilbert H. Hood that was damaged in the windstorm. There were bathroom stall petitions that were replaced in the 6th grade wing at Hood. The server room received electrical repairs and upgrades, and a drain in the cafeteria that had been causing issues received water jetting. Over at West Running Brook, Honeywell was on site refurbishing the attic air handling equipment. Train, who's also been doing some HVAC work, they were all on site conducting preventative maintenance on our air handlers over there. And Train was part of ESSER 2, so they had finished up their work that they had been doing over there through that grant. CSI Engineering, they did put out bid documents for the replacement of our dry sprinkler, which is one of our projects for West Running Brook. And they have created the RFP, and it is posted on our website. So we're hoping to get some bids for that. And bathroom stall petitions also were replaced in the 7th grade area at West Running Brook. South Range Train was again on site doing preventative maintenance on air handlers. Honeywell began replacements of 2 indirect domestic water heaters at Grinnell. District-wide, the emergency backup lighting and exit lighting inspections and repairs were completed by Cintas, who we have a contract with for fire protection, and various projects that were done normally on school vacation weeks. Painting, deep cleaning, floor restoration were done by our custodial staff during vacation week. Over at East Derry, we did have the flooring in the entryway has been replaced with more accessible and easier to maintain system. We did have some good pictures in here, but if you haven't seen them, if you want to head over to East Derry, so amazing the job that they did on that entrance. It literally had sunken in, and they had to replace the whole thing, and they've had it really just hanging on by a thread since the beginning of the school year, and we had to wait till a school break to get that done. So that looks really great out there. Electrical panels were replaced after failed breakers were part of our outdated system, could not be repaired, so they had to be replaced. The parking lot and walkway perimeter have been cleared of brush and debris. That was partly due, and there's some water that's going into the parking lot that they've been trying to work on fixing some drainage out there. And engineering from SFC were visiting the building because they continue to design the replacement fire alarm system. That replacement fire alarm system, again, was one of the things that was noted in, I believe it was the LaValle report. And so Jeremy's been working on them for that. Again, that'll be an RFP that'll be posted on our website. Ernest P. Barca, they did have bleacher seats that needed to be replaced. There were about 30, well, actually, there were 30 of them that were replaced during school break. And that is quite a project. Many of them were cracked, and we're hoping that, we won't see that again next year. That's not a normal year. Typically, we replace 4 to 5 in a given year. So we just internally going to be watching a lot of our rentals and having a little bit more supervision at the schools when outside organizations are in there. And that's it for facilities update. I did put in, as you know, we've been putting pretty much all of our facility projects out to bid on an RFP. Our most recent one that we've received bids for was the for security systems in our building. We've been working on that for a very long time. It's partially stemmed because the computer system that we're using now is Hikvision, which you actually can't purchase those anymore if you're going to use any federal funds. It's actually illegal to do that. So any replacements of our cameras would only be able to be done using general funds. So, and also the security systems needed to be upgraded nonetheless. So we had a committee, we had Michelle Cremoni, Kim Carpentino, Jeremy Lamoth, Rob Spirito, Cliff Dancy was on the committee. We looked at a couple different systems, Cliff and Jeremy, I think Rob, we all went out to Timberlane, looked at their system. We've called other districts to look at their systems. We then put out an RFP. As with the majority of our bids that we're putting out right now, we're requiring mandatory walkthroughs. So I think there were 5 or 6 vendors that came for the walkthrough. And then we lost a few along the way. So they stayed at a couple schools and then they just dropped off. So we figured they weren't putting in a bid. And then there were 2. And so what I've included there are the only 2 that actually did put in a formal bid for the project. And you can see that E&E Security had a bid amount for $454,000. Lantel came in at $619,000. As a note, I know Anthony just talked about the security at Pinkerton. E&E is actually the firm that's been doing all of that work over at Pinkerton. And they have the state bid, so E&E does all of the state jobs as well. So, and that will be paid for using a few different sources. It'll be grants and general budget and things like that. So since we've been kind of on a process of bringing all RFPs and asking you to vote on them, I would request if you could do a vote on that tonight so that we could lock in on the 30-day, all of our bids that go out have a 30-day time frame in order for their prices to be valid. So Wednesday would actually be the 30th day that it was received.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Kearney. We have a second?
Motion, which one?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's, yeah, so I guess.
Go ahead and do it.
So, do we have, I would
Sorry.
entertain a motion to approve the RFP for E&E Security in the amount of $454,286.
Can I just ask a question first?
Yeah, I mean.
I know we do it during.
We're going to have a discussion after.
Sure. So I'll move to approve the bid in the amount of $454,286 for E&E Security.
First by Jason.
Second.
Second by Michael. I'll open up the discussion.
Just the question, Jane, the bids were same, apples to apples. One firm wasn't providing anything different from the other firm. Everything was identical, line item by line item.
Well, we had a RFP with detailed specs that each one had to bid on. It was a Verkada brand system, so they each had to bid on Verkada. They had to bid on the same number of cameras. They bid on the same distance of any cabling, which actually I don't think that we actually had to have cable, did we?
For any additional cameras, we provided maps. Everybody was given the exact same materials to bid with.
So the service that's provided, so any warranty, any service that's needed, is that all equal? The only reason I ask, right, if E&E, we award them, but their service stops when after, they install, they're good, they've kind of washed their hands, but Lantel offers X amount of months, years, however long that they provide support. They'll, priority callbacks, they're not charging chip charges, et cetera. I just want to make sure, because that's a pretty big difference. The spread there between the bids is, to me, I'm looking at, I'm saying $165,000. What's the rub, right? Like there's something missing.
Well, I can give you part of the reason why. So even some of the vendors that came for the mandatory walkthrough, they actually aren't, you have to be a Verkada distributor, for one. And the RFP was specific that you had to have installed it in a certain number of schools. So, for example, Johnson Controls came for the walkthrough. Johnson Controls is not a Verkada distributor. They don't install Verkada. So I think one of the bidders dropped out because they didn't have the manpower to install in the time period that we would want. Lantel, like E&E Security, Lantel, E&E Security, because they have the state bid, I just think that their prices are less expensive. I'm not even sure Lantel actually hasn't installed in any schools. So we did interview, when we interviewed them and looked out at other school districts, E&E, there's no service calls for them to come out. There's no shipping charges. The follow-up is that they would have next day replacement of cameras. So I can't explain the big difference, except I'm assuming that E&E has more buying power with Verkada because they are a Verkada distributor. That's not their only camera system, and Lantel would probably not be getting the same purchase price on the cameras as E&E.
Jason, if I may add, on many technology purchases, different companies have different markups. When I did the VoIP RFP, there was a dramatic difference between some of these companies that were hundreds of thousands of dollars different, and it was purely the markup on the product and the labor costs. So each company who bids these things, regardless of if they have the same product or not, it's all dependent on the profit margin a lot of times.
I understand. I just want to make sure that what we're voting on tonight is a like for like, right? I would assume, right? I mean, I'm looking at the lesser of the two, and that makes most sense to me based on a few of the other things. I just want to make sure that there's not something we're missing inside of that RFP that says we're getting this additional for this, or we're not going to have this with this company. So, thank you.
No, and we do sealed bids, so bids come in and then we open them, several of us will open them at the same time so that, we're all looking at the same thing and nobody's given an advantage of anything, but yes, they were like bidding.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I see in the RFP, we required an initial minimum 1-year licensing and support with on-site support, and then the option to continue annual support after the 1-year period has ended. I'm assuming that is what both companies are offering to do.
Yes, and obviously we're very lucky because when we did the walkthrough, we were lucky to have Cliff, and so he knew all the tech terms and what they were talking about and what we had for our needs, and so I'm looking forward to having the new camera systems installed. We are keeping, Derry Village will just use the existing ones because we're not going to upgrade those. They're all working fine for now. But yes, so.
Any further discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Yes.
Wait, yes, you oppose? Yes. Okay, just making sure. This motion passes 6-1. Thank you, Jane. Anyone have any questions for Jane regarding the rest of the business administrator report?
Make this quick. Is our My School Bucks contract auto renew, or do we have to reevaluate it every so often?
We do reevaluate it every so often, and I'm actually glad you brought it up because their fees are going to be, yes.
So I just deposited $30 on my daughter's account this morning, and I used a debit card, and that's $3.25 to use a debit card. So I'm paying a 10% fee to have my daughter buy lunch at school. When normally, when you go to the store and you use your credit card, the store you're using your credit card, the fee's like 2 to 3%. So we need to reevaluate this because they also gave us a one-time fee in November and December because they're claiming their costs are to keep up with their costs. So this has been my diatribe for 2 years now, and I think we really need to start looking at it because it's not reasonable to ask our families to put $100 on the card so the fee's only 3%. And I don't even do it, and I just don't think it's reasonable, and I have a real problem with it.
Okay, sure. We can look to find other companies that are compatible with our food service system and take a look at that because I'm in agreement with you. I think the fees are getting ridiculous. The only reason why I like having online payment is because I like having less cash in our schools. So, but that doesn't say we haven't had some issues with them lately either. It's my school bucks is through a company called Heartland, and we've actually had quite a few problems with us with our banking lately. So I'm happy to research other vendors and see who's out there.
Well, let's just look at the contract first and see what it says in the contract, what our avenues are through contractual obligations with them before we waste your time and move forward. Let's check that out first. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The only thing I'd like to say is just, great appreciation for the food service staff and, continued praise for the facilities team that constantly is working on these things. I know we had a leak at Grinnell recently. We've got bleachers that are getting broken, entryways that need to be done. So I know I feel like they're constantly busy, and I know they're small staff. So thank you to that team for sure. With that, I don't think we have any personnel. Is that correct? All right. We can move on to policies. And these are the first reading of the policies, and I believe there is also a summary sheet, but I'll pass it over to you, Austin.
Thank you. Okay, we have a number of policies. I've broken them up. They're not all they're in little sections of alphabetical order, I guess, but first we want to go over 5 new policies. And I did provide the school board with my summary sheet because there are so many policies. We talked about these with the school board policy subcommittee. And starting out with 5 new policies. The first one is ACN, nursing mothers accommodation. And on all of these, I'm saying 5, but some are grouped together. But on all of these new policies, as you see in the summary sheet, I used the complete New Hampshire School Board Association updated policy or brand new policy. And I had our regular minor formatting changes. And when I say minor formatting changes, it has a lot to do with or designee and sometimes listing those designees, putting Derry Cooperative School District and district, school board and board in parentheses so that we don't have to keep writing the whole thing down as we go through these policies. So this is a new policy to make sure that we are taking care of nursing mothers and providing the necessary accommodations. I'll stop at the end of each one of these and see if anybody has questions before I move on to the next new one, and then I'll ask you to vote on all of the new ones together. Okay, so Jane mentioned to the school board previously, but we had an audit, and some of the policies relating to federal monies, DAF. There is DAF 1 through 11. And the first ones that I'm going to do are new. One of the things that the school board wanted is they liked the wording, which turns out they actually have a DAF without a dash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11. And that has the wording on it. So the first one you'll see, which is DEF, it also has the legal references that relate to all of the other DAF policies that will be coming up. So the first one that I added in here was DAF, Administration of Federal Grants, so that we would have the documentation of the wording we wanted, plus have the legal references. And we had 3 of the DAFs that we did not have, although one of them we had a different policy under a different policy code, but we updated all 3 of them. DAF 6 is inventory management, equipment and supplies purchased with federal grants. And once again, all New Hampshire School Board Association with minor formatting changes. DAF 7 is the one that we also have DKC further on that we updated, which is about travel reimbursements, but the audit wanted us to have the DAF 7 included. And the other one that we did not have, subrecipient monitoring and management, DAF 11. And again, 100% New Hampshire School Board Association with our updates and formatting changes. DFGA is crowdfunding, and nothing out of the ordinary in this one. That is the complete new policy from the New Hampshire School Board Association. And EBCC, false alarms, active shooter, bomb, and other such threats. This is a brand new policy. It is the complete New Hampshire School Board policy with our formatting changes. And finally, policy GADA, employment references and verification. The main thing with this was making sure that anybody who had, I wanted to highlight this in here, hang on. Knowledge or probable cause to believe that the employee, contractor, or agent engaged in illegal sexual miscontact with a minor or a student, that we would not keep them employed or refer them on to anybody else. So those are all of the new policies, and I did say vote on them, but they are first reading, so we're not voting on them. Does anybody have any questions on the new policies? Okay, we will move on to updates. I'm not 100% sure why these happen from time to time, but I think they just want them in 2 different sections. This is the exact same policy. One is ADB GBEC, and the exact same policy is in the G section under GBEC ADB, and this is drug and alcohol-free workplace and schools. And once again, it is updated from the New Hampshire School Board Association policies with our minor formatting changes. Next is EHB, which is data records retention, and this was updated to the New Hampshire School updated to the New Hampshire School Board Association policy with minor formatting changes and minor formatting changes in EHBR, which is the list of local records retention and the schedule for how long those documents need to be retained. Next is JKAA, use of restraints and seclusion. Once again, this is updated to the New Hampshire School Board Association policy with minor formatting changes. And then we get to the rest of the DAFs. DAF 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 10. And all of these, in full transparency, due to the audit, these are mainly just minor formatting changes so that we could get our eyes on them and we could revise it and update it as of 2024. And then we get to DKC, which is the equivalent of DAF 7 that we actually already had the DKC, and that is expense and travel reimbursement. And we had updated this as recently as June 2023, but wanted to get it updated along with the new DAF 7, so we had some minor formatting changes. And then data governance and security, which is EHEB. The main thing that was added was simply in Section A, definitions, line 3 right in the middle, personally identifiable information. The New Hampshire School Board Association added parentheses, I period, E period, capital P, capital I, parentheses, just to be able to utilize that throughout the rest of the document for any time it said personally identifiable information. Also, if you look at section B, B1F was added, and also added was the second paragraph in section G. And these are all updates and additions from the New Hampshire School Board Association. Next is GBCD, Background Investigation and Criminal Records History Check. And this one has minor formatting changes, and we added the second paragraph in the volunteers section, which is at the top of page 2. And that is, once again, from New Hampshire School Board Association. And then we have JCA, change of school assignment, best interest, and manifest educational hardship. Minor formatting changes, but also adding 2 paragraphs, one in section B6 and one in section B7, which is halfway down on the last page, page 4, transportation and annual review of manifest educational hardship determination. Again, an update from the New Hampshire School Board Association. All right. KCD, public gifts and donations. I want to point out in this, there's been some minor formatting changes, but you want to look at the monetary updates. The New Hampshire School Board Association has updated in the third paragraph. The superintendent may accept gifts in the amount of, it used to be $500, it is now up to $2,500 or less. Gifts in excess of $2,500 may only be accepted by the board. Additionally, pursuant to RSA 198:20-B, gifts in the amount of, and this was $5,000, it's been updated to $20,000 or more, shall require the board to hold gifts in the amount of $20,000 or more shall require the board to hold a public hearing regarding any action to be taken with the gift. For gifts of less than $20,000, the board will post notice of the gift in the agenda of the next regularly scheduled board meeting and will include notice in the minutes of the meeting in which the gift is discussed. And the acceptance of all gifts, as always, will be made in public session. So those are major changes and updates to the amount in KCD. Does anybody have questions on that? And finally, KI, which for whatever reason, our policy was KI-AA. It's the only policy I've ever seen that we had that those letters, but the New Hampshire School Board Association just calls this KI. So that's the first thing, is if you look up the top right for the EPS code, it now just says KI. And New Hampshire School Board, we use their language for the most part, except I kept the bulleted format that we had in our original version. So any question on KI or any of the other updates? And as we said, bless you, this is all first readings, and we will bring this back again on the 26th for second readings.
Thank you.
Anyone from the policy committee have anything to add?
I bet.
Yes, it was.
Better you than me. All right. All right, thanks. So that's first reading. Well, next meeting will be the second reading. All right. Moving on, we'll stick with you, Austin, and your superintendent's update.
Okay, I'll shorten this down a bit because it's getting late, but I hope everyone had a wonderful winter break a couple of weeks ago. The weather was like spring. It's hard to say that today because, who was it, Winnie the Pooh with the blustery day or something? It was quite a blustery day today, but the weather was like spring, late April or even early May for some of those days. Hopefully you got to spend some time with family and friends and rested up for this long month of March. In less than 2 weeks, it will actually turn to spring on the calendar, and the lack of snow will hopefully be replaced with a lack of rain because we got plenty of that this past month. Tomorrow here in Derry is voting day. I feel like this voting day has been coming for about 3 years, more so than any other year. And I must say it gives the voters in the town of Derry a chance to let us know by their vote how they feel about things, and we are all looking forward to seeing those results. The first warrant, as we know, is for 2 new school board members, each for a 3-year term, and 1 school moderator also for a 3-year term. Warrant Article 2 is for capital improvements to the school facilities, raising nearly $37 million for a bond that's divided into 3 different tranches to complete major renovations and replacements to the existing school buildings in our district. Warrant Article 3 is to raise approximately $71 million for the building of a new school on the site of the current Derry Village Elementary School to replace Derry Village and South Range as of the beginning of the, Derry Village would be closed immediately and South Range would be replaced at the beginning of the 2027-2028 school year if Warrant Article 3 passes this year. Warrant Article 4 is to raise approximately $103 million for the 24-25 school year operating budget. This includes the cost of educating all Derry students in grades pre-K through 12th grade and represents an increase of 3.76 above last year's budget. Some drivers of the increase include over 20% increase in health insurance rate, 9.3% increase in overall transportation costs, 5.75% increase in Pinkerton Academy costs, and a 14.5% increase in out-of-district tuition costs. The school board worked collaboratively with the Fiscal Advisory Committee to keep this budget increase as low as possible. And Warrant Article 5 and 6 are for the contract for our wonderful assistants, also known as paraeducators. These people are hourly employees and work directly with students and staff members. The agreement is for 3 years with raises depending on the assistant's experience and job assignment. The cost of this new agreement is estimated to be less than $200,000 in year one. The final warrant article is a petition by a citizen of Derry with 426 signatures. The primary purpose of the petition is to reverse the decision of the school board to close Derry Village and rezone students into those 6 remaining schools. Excuse me, this article is advisory and not binding, as these types of decisions rest with elected school board members. I hope that, as in the past, the voties of Derry will go to the polls and support the recommendations of the school board. Thank you. My school visits began again last week after the February vacation. It has been wonderful to see the students and staff picking up right where they left off. My school visits will continue this week, culminating this Friday at 7 p.m. when my wife and I will attend the Gilbert H. Hood Middle School keynote-sponsored play, The Little Mermaid Jr. Wanted to go to the matinee on Saturday with my granddaughter, but she has a birthday party, of course. It seems like every weekend they have birthday parties. But we took her to West Running Brooks last year, and she enjoyed that. But my wife and I will have a swell time there Friday night. Just like West Running Brooks play this past January, I expect to see an outstanding performance with so many students on stage and behind the scenes. I don't know why you're supposed to say this, but I think I'm supposed to say break a leg. And then finally, Kearney Picorni and Paul Lutz, I have certificates for you. And let me read what it says. Certificate of Appreciation, Leaders in Education, Kearney Picorni, or Paul Lutz, Commitment, Perseverance, and Community Contributions to the Derry Cooperative School District, March 2024. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Said it was a certificate, I thought it was a gift certificate. $100 million, that's it, best you can do.
So the school board members, all of them, I want to, as we come to close to the close of the another year, and we're going to have 2 new school board members. Whomever gets voted in, I look forward to working with them, and we'll welcome them into the school board community. There's a lot to this job, and we appreciate everybody who's willing, all of you that are on the board now, and all of you who are applying. We appreciate your commitment and your willingness to step forward. It's not an easy thing to do, but I thank you for it ahead of time.
Thank you, Austin. Anyone want to add or ask Austin any questions?
Thank you for all your hard work this year. Thank you. And years ahead.
All right. FYIs, there is a March 1 enrollment report. I didn't see anything that was monumentally different than the February, but please take a look at that. And then we'll move on to committees. So we'll start with the manifest committee.
I move to approve the manifest in the amount of $11,902,091.63. Of that, we have general payroll of $4,033,423.73, and general expense of $7,868,667.90.
First by David. Second by Kearney. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Any other committees that would like to report this evening? All right, seeing none. Do we have any other business that the board would like to mention?
I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be here on this board this last year, and I'm so excited to see what this education system becomes. I think that we really have an amazing opportunity to continue growth, and I hope everybody hits the polls tomorrow and goes and votes, and I look forward to seeing what you guys continue to do.
Thank you, Kearney.
Jane, do we have written bids that we received for the camera RFP? Like a
Yes.
document? Yeah.
Mhm.
Could you provide those to everyone, just so that we can review that?
Sure.
And I would ask too, in the future, if we're going to be asked to vote on an expenditure for an RFP, that we are able to see the bids and review them before.
Sure. We can bring forward any bids that come across and include them all in the packet. Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything?
I just wanted to, my fellow board members, Anthony, I wanted to apologize. I had a tough year. I had a couple of serious injuries. I had a serious medical diagnosis, and my performance and contributions weren't up to at least my own standards, and I apologize for that. And I'm profoundly sorry. And to the public, I'd like to say that I thank you very, very much for the opportunity to serve the town of Derry and the Derry School District for as many years as I have. And I want to tell you that from the bottom of my heart, I really, every time I have to make a decision, I had to make a decision or do something, I always kept in mind that the position that I occupied at the time, I was put in a position of trust by people, and that meant a great deal to me, and it made me analyze the decisions that I made at the time. So I thank you for that opportunity.
Paul, it's been a pleasure to work with you over the last year, and I have to commend you for your dedication to the students of Derry, and you don't need to apologize for anything.
It's been great to have you, Paul.
The only thing you need to apologize for is getting on a ladder and promise you're staying off them from now on.
You say I wasn't stupid.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would certainly echo the sentiments from Michael, Kearney, and Brenda as well. Please go enjoy your time not being on the board, and get fully healthy. And if you want to come visit us, you got every other Tuesday. We'll give you 3 minutes.
You now got 3 minutes in the beginning of the meeting, so you don't have to wait through the whole thing.
Don't get all warm and fuzzy here, huh?
But yeah, truly, it's been a pleasure, Paul. Your wisdom will be sorely missed, so thank you for, I know physically you may not have been all here, but mentally, your aptitude and your words of wisdom have been exemplary over my time on the board, and what I've seen from you previously as well. So thank you for your commitment, not just as a school board member, but to your entire dedication to Derry as well. So thank you so much. Anyone else have any other business that they would like to end with? All right, I do have a couple things. First and foremost, the other day I was at South Range and I walked by a Wonder Woman wall. And so last week was International Women's Day, and they did some art projects, and there was many moms who inspired their children, but I also saw there were many teachers, and the ones that I saw were Miss LaFleur, Miss Quinn, and Mrs. Holland. So special shout out to them, but to all, just as a reminder to, thank all of the, strong women that are in our community, and men as well, but again, last week was International Women's Day, so thank you to continuing to show up for our community. Another item is I was emailed about an idea to add an agenda item on a monthly basis. Just wanted to throw this out there. This is my last meeting as chair, but should the board want to do this, moving forward, I think it's actually a good idea. It actually would give state reps the opportunity to attend and inform the board on education bills that are being discussed. And whether they attend or not, we can still have discussions around that as well. But I think maybe looking at that on a monthly basis is worth considering. And then lastly, the New Hampshire PTA reached out, and the New Hampshire Fair Funding project, I believe is what it is, has gotten or has seen an increase in funding resolutions in response to the recent lawsuit. Many towns in the area, Chester being one of them, is which I pulled the example from, have essentially, our school boards are calling upon the town of where they are, their elected representatives that are serving in the state legislature to work toward and support a school funding solution in the best interest of students and taxpayers that complies with the recent court rulings and increase the amount of state education funding received by these schools and reduces the property tax burden on the taxpayers of those towns as well. I would strongly encourage the six other members, I guess the four continuing on members, plus the two new members of the board to consider that, and maybe that's a resolution that we bring forward at a future board meeting as well. And then lastly, to echo everyone else's sentiments, tomorrow's election day. Please bring your students. There are options for them to vote as well on different things for lunches, whether it's a snack or whether it's pajama day, or there's different themes or extra recess. So please bring your kids out to vote as well, because they can participate. And as always, I'm sure there will be plenty of stickers to be handed out as well. So.
Thank you to the PTAs and the principals who rallied together and got the ballots and what they were going to vote on. And also thanks to Tina, who made lots of copies in different colors for all our kids, so including deep. So it'll be a fun day for them.
All right. Well, that concludes this meeting. I'll take a motion to...
Motion to adjourn.
Motion first by Paul.
Second.
Second by Kearney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a great night. Thank you.